Hello, 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 and welcome to the Liquidity event. We are your hosts, Shane Mason.
And I'm AJ.
And this is episode 83 of the Liquidity event, coming to you on March 3rd, 2023. AJ, it's March. Just like that,
Happy
out of
March.
nowhere. It's March.
Oh, the Ides of March are coming soon. Thanks so much for joining us on today's program. As you can tell from my new microphone cover, what are these called? Pop filters? I have a snazzy, for those of you tuning in via audio and not video, I have a snazzy BBC4 radio pop filter because I left mine on an air. My pop filter escaped my bag on an airplane, so it is lost.
Did it fall off?
Yeah, I was James Bonding it back from Palm Springs with no luggage because I hurt my back, and I stuffed all the important items into a little purse, which were my laptop and my podcast microphone and my favorite lipstick. So I borrowed my husband, who does a lot more impressive podcasts than I do, so I stole his BBC4 mic cover.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. I left my Kindle on a Delta flight about 2 months ago, and they just let me know that they found it. So
really,
another good reason.
Oh, we've got some.
To now I have two Kindles. If you need one.
Oh, actually, I do need one. Yeah. I'm back on the ebook train. We have some Delta wins to talk about later as well.
That's true. That's true. On this week's episode of the Liquidity event, we have Amazon purchase of One Medical. We've got a lot of antitrust stuff going on. We're going to try to convince you guys that accounting can be cool. And then TikTok and taxes are all up in. It's tax season, y'all. It's a fish tax season. So great episodes today. AJ, your name on today's episode is Fuck Spectrum, and you're coming to me from an iPhone. What's that all about? What's going on there?
Yeah, I live in Clinton Hill in Brooklyn, and my internet right now is about the speed it was in 1994 when I was going to the Beanie Babies websites, and you would see the page like loading one at a time, and I was trying to look up the value of like my Princess Diana Beanie Baby. That's what I'm experiencing right now. So actually going to our website.
The original Bitcoin. Do you remember
exactly.
when you could choose between it would like come in all at once but grainy, like pixelated, yes, or you had to wait for it to load the top 20%, second 40%, next 60% at pristine quality? Yeah. What kind of person were you? Were you grainy or 20, 40, 60, 80, 100?
I was 20, 40, 60, obviously. Only psychos would want grainy stuff. Anyway. It's very frustrating to not have internet. It's like one of the last frontiers of like problems you can't fix with like, I don't know, an app. Like we've solved transportation, food delivery, medical delivery, which we'll talk about, prescriptions. Like I can do so many things, but like I can't do anything because my internet sucks. Like I can't take a break and watch TV. Yeah, like it's very frustrating.
So far.
Anyway,
you know me, man. I want to throw a Starlink on every roof and just pipe it down as a backup. I don't know why we can't do that. I was watching Instagram and they rolled out a new Starlink that you can throw on a sailboat, and like if it works in the middle of the ocean, it'll work on your Brooklyn rooftop. Yeah, man, it's pretty nuts. Like your boat will be bobbing around and it can still pick up signal. It works on RVs and everything.
Sick.
You know my standing for stars.
Speaking of bobbing around, I finally finished the goddamn Three Body Problem, the book that I've been reading for like 2 months.
We're not in the book club anymore. You're done.
I finally finished it. You're still going?
I put it down to read all 7 Harry Potters in a row, and I'm on I'm 3/4 of the way through book 3. I'll pick it back up after I'm done with the Potter boy.
All right, favorite professor at Hogwarts. Quickly, go.
Well, I'm only through 3 books, so
you've met all the professors at this point, except the Defense Against the Dark Arts professors, but you've met most of them.
Lupin is the new one, and I like him a lot. He's the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, but he's probably not my favorite. I have a feeling McGonagall's going to end up, or Snape.
You are Lupin. Oh my God, you are Lupin.
Tight.
Oh my God.
Shabby clothes, good at his job. Moving on. Let's get into the podcast.
Disappears at the full moon. Wait. I know you don't like surprises, but I have a surprise. Oh. It's not that big of a surprise.
Wait, I like surprises.
You don't like when I do surprises on the podcast. You're like, where are you going, AJ?
Oh, well, yeah. I don't like when we have a plan and then you go off the rails. But what is this?
Right. Okay. No, my plan is, so I just finished this book, and I don't know why it was so hard for me to get through it. I was reading it for like 2 months. So I want to have an interactive podcast. Obviously, this is not live, but like I want our readers to vote on what I should read next. So the 2 books that I've picked from my huge stack next to my bed that I'm not going to get through are the first
AJ's
Tycoon,
holding up 2 huge books to the screen.
Big books. Love big books. Yep. I've got big books, and I cannot lie. The First Tycoon, which is the epic life of Cornelius Vanderbilt by T.J. Stiles. How many pages we got here?
Big fan of that one.
Let's call it 560. Won the Pulitzer Prize, so this is going to be good, right? It's going to be a biography of, it's not just of the man, it's of the city, New York City,
hard
right?
to follow.
And then, so that's not our nonfiction. And then we have Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead, who is one of my favorite authors. So this is going to be fiction, and I believe it's also about New York City. And it's got like music and the Harlem Renaissance. So I'm kind of into this one too. So what should I read next, dear listeners?
Great question.
Let us know. Speaking of listeners, also a new segment that I want to throw out there, which is a listener shout out. So this week I want to give a personal shout out to our bud Eric Rodriguez for being a cool dude. He's a newer friend of ours. I'm told he's an excellent golfer, and he is a Liquidity event stan. So shout out to you, Eric. Thanks for being such a great dude and listening to the pod. All right, let's stop yammering and get into some articles. So
we have a lot of articles. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, we might have to rapid fire through some of these headlines because a lot of these are just like, we got to talk about it. But this first one, Amazon says it has completed a $3.5 billion acquisition of One Medical. Have you ever been to a One Medical?
I have not yet. I did a lot of research on this, and I'm excited about it. What are your thoughts on the acquisition or the product?
I'm not familiar with the product personally, but I've also read a lot about it. Very intrigued by anything that can fix healthcare or is attempting to fix healthcare. The U.S. is a very large country with a lot of unhealthy people. So the current healthcare system is super broken. So whatever we can throw at the problem to see what works, I am basically in favor of. So Amazon has fixed shipping and fixed home delivery through their mastery of logistics. So let's see how they do in the healthcare space. Just for those who are not familiar, One Medical, they are physical, sort of like an urgent care if you've ever been to one of those, except this is for your primary care physician. So instead of going to a doctor through your insurance that you have to find, you just walk into a One Medical and say, hey, I need my annual physical or, some medicine to get rid of your flu or give you some stitches, whatever you need there. And Amazon just bought them for their network, for their footprints, for their tech. I have a feeling there's a lot of tech involved in One Medical's success and patient processing. I think one of the biggest costs in the healthcare industry is like accounting and bureaucracy and paperwork. So if they can eliminate that, that's a big win. So I am in favor of this acquisition. There's not going to be an antitrust challenge here, so that's cool. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I don't know, the the announcement I think was in September-ish that they were going to buy it, and FTC's decided not to challenge it. Yeah, I didn't really look into One Medical until I'm kind of embarrassed until that Amazon decided to buy it. I'm excited for them to enter the space. A lot of predictions that they would get into medical eventually. I mean, it is a multi-trillion-dollar business, and at the size that Amazon is, it has to have a huge target market in order to do big acquisitions. Otherwise, it's just not worth the time and energy. I went to the website. There's a funny hassle-free primary care comparison between One Medical and a typical primary care practice. Apparently, it's 24/7 virtual care, which is great for someone like me that's always moving around, sometimes out of the country. These days, I'm just paying Mexicans cash to take care of me in person. What's up?
Quick note there, though, because of certain privacy laws, I've noticed that when I'm out of the country, sometimes you actually can't log into certain video chat or like medical apps. Like I log into like NYU's MyChart, and you literally can't log in overseas. So just watch out for that before you sign up. Pro tip.
Yeah. Or, get a VPN for $0 a year.
Sure.
Yeah, come on. Get a little VPN situation. ExpressVPN's really good. We're big fans of that one. Appointments start on time, which I feel like is super low hanging fruit for a comparison to primary care physician. Supposedly, yeah. You've been going to the doctor a lot lately, so
yeah, I go to the doctor all the time. And yesterday, they squeezed me in because I had an emergency and I waited for 45 minutes, which is fine. They squeezed me in. I was appreciative. But yeah, going to the doctor is an ordeal. So if they can make it easier, and most people don't need to go to the doctor, right? They just need to check up. How's my vitamin B12 levels? Do I have cancer, etc. Like this is trying to solve this huge insurance problem of like the people who are generally healthy and just want to make sure they're okay, like it's cheap to service those people. My fear here, though, is that this does take away potentially from, and by the way, this does not replace insurance, right? They do take insurance, so you can use your insurance premium to pay for this. It's just a better way to have access to doctors, so we can leave the physicians to that sort of like high level, let's cure diseases, not, give someone a prescription for cough medicine.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, the last two things, as long as I'm not receiving bills in the fucking mail anymore, I'll pay the $200 a year for the app, for the One Medical app. That apparently is one of the benefits. Also, they have on-site labs, which is another thing that drives me crazy, is when you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, yeah, we need to send you to the lab, which is 6 boroughs away. And you go all the way there, and that's another 2 hours of waiting to get your blood drawn. And then you got to wait 4 weeks, and it's another bill in the mail that goes to God knows where before it shows up on your credit report. So, yeah, I mean, this industry is ripe for disruption. I'm excited to see Amazon take this at scale.
To pull a page out of Sesame Street's handbook. Speaking of the number 4, after testing it in the UK, companies are potentially excited about moving to a 4-day work week. So we've heard about a year ago, we heard about this study that was commencing. It was 61 businesses in the UK, aka England, who were going to try out this 4-day work week.
Say that to some Scottish or Irish people.
No, it says British. It's 61 British businesses.
AKA England.
Clarifying that it was in the British Isles. Anyway, it was 61 businesses and 2,900 workers, and they tried it out, and essentially the results were pretty positive, right? 46% of the companies in the trial said their business productivity had remained about the same. 34% reported a slight improvement, and 15% reported a significant improvement. So my big complaint here is that they didn't do this. They did this study from June through November. And my complaint is that they didn't do this through the winter, aka seasonal affect disorder season, where productivity slumps and people don't want to go to work because they're sad because the weather sucks. So I think they needed to continue the study to have some real data, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I didn't pick up on that. I mean, one thing I did pick up on is that this is, yes, in the UK, which is notably very different from the United States work culture. With that said, I looked at our changes in productivity historically from because the idea here is that our people are the threat to business owners. Are people going to be as productive? And just thinking about productivity, I looked at our productivity as compared to wages from historically, and apparently ever since 1979, 1980. I'm not sure what caused this. Maybe it was the merger and acquisition or the hostile takeover area of the 1980s that we experienced, but we have seen a 4x increase in productivity compared to wages. So essentially, you're getting paid for Monday for the work you did Monday through Thursday. So I don't know. In my opinion, I think maybe we should be paying people, giving them 1 day off per year might help, change that gap in terms of productivity versus compensation. And BKFI is experimenting with this. In July, we're going to 4-day work weeks. We have expanded time off in the summertime, but anything else you want to say about?
I was going to say, here's what I want to say about this is it's, in the space we're in financial planning and wealth management and tax, like for wealth managers, this is probably fairly easy to implement, right? You let your clients know we're going to a 4-day work week. You probably have someone on rotation for emergencies. So there's always someone that client can reach. But for tax firms, I think the accounting industry, which we'll talk about later, is going to be very slow to adopt this and even think about this. So I'm I imagine the big 4 accounting firms doing the Spider-Man pointing fingers at each other, you should do it. No, you should do it. So is Brooklyn FI going to have to be the first accounting firm to move to a 4-day work week to set the industry trend? That's my prediction.
Yeah,
something that we are
talk
certainly
about that
considering.
for another 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll circle back to it in a bit. Speaking of circling back, the Department of Justice has circled back to the Adobe acquisition of Figma and decided that there is going to be a problem. It's a bit of a problematic acquisition. I'm not as familiar with these. I'm very familiar with Adobe. Problematic acquisition?
I'm problematic acquisition.
I'm
here to tell you about your concentrated position.
Nice. You keep going.
I'm good.
This is a cipher you got going here. The deal was announced in September, so maybe that's what I was thinking about when I said that about One Medical. But it's just surprising to me how long these acquisitions take. I guess the ruling bodies or the antitrust bodies of various jurisdictions need to take a look, and it looks like the U.S. and Europe are not stoked about Adobe's snatching up of Figma at $20 billion. It's been compared to Facebook's acquisition of Instagram, a startup that was going to be competing. Of course, that's it was 1/20th the size. The only $1 billion paycheck going out is to the CEO of Figma. Congrats for building a startup. I haven't used Figma very much. I've used a lot of Photoshop. It is incredibly difficult to use. I had to figure out how to make fake IDs in high school. Let me tell you, it took a while. AJ, what are your thoughts on Figma? I know you use it.
I use it quite a bit.
Routinely for our software.
Yeah, and I'm not a designer, so I find it frustrating, but 10 times easier to use than Photoshop. And for collaborating from a non-designer, collaborating with a designer, it's incredible. Our designer makes a change, makes a comment. I come in, I say, I don't like this, remove the $, whatever I want to say. Like, I love the tool. So the argument here is that this takes away competition because Adobe had their own product that was similar for this type of like non-professional collaboration called XD, which I've heard from designers is just not very good. It just wasn't as good as Figma. And I didn't realize this, but Adobe has been trying to buy Figma since 2020. They've tried like 3 other times and like finally succeeded in 2022. So they have known that this is something that they need to compete in this space. I guess this lawsuit is around, hey, this isn't even competition. They're just squashing out all other competitors.
Yeah. Which I guess is the complaint, right? Because Adobe owns the high-end space and now they're purchasing the low-end space. So there's not really anything left. I mean, this is bad for you and I on an anecdotal scale. Like we'll just have to pay more for Figma and Adobe, whereas Microsoft had apparently they solicited Microsoft to make the acquisition. That would have been great for us because we're big users of Microsoft.
Already pay out the wazoo for Microsoft anyway.
Yeah, maybe that would have been a built-in tool for us, but apparently not. Or maybe it will, because the EU and the US are challenging the deal. So maybe it won't go through, which would be such a bummer for the $1 billion payout to the CEO and all the rest of the employees. Speaking of bummers, being an accountant is a bummer, according to the Wall Street Journal puff piece.
According to the boomers at the Wall Street Journal. Oh my God, this article made me so. The article's called "How Can We Make Accounting Cool?" And the illustration is of a cool guy, aka a guy with a mohawk, sitting at his desk doing some accounting.
Don't forget his sleeves and his nose ring.
Yeah, I think you should be offended, Shane. Like, you're the cool accountant. When I first heard about the idea of Shane Mason, when Brooklyn FI was barely a twinkle in your eye, you were introduced to me as the cool accountant. So I'm honestly offended that we were not consulted for this piece. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for saying that. I judge my coolness based on if my nieces and nephews find me cool, which is I'm doing well. My niece is coming down for a Tame Impala show next weekend down to Mexico City, so I'm going to get a lot of cool points. To be fair, yes, I am offended by this. But I'm more bummed out that 75% of the CPAs hit retirement age in 2020, and CPA exam attendance is down 40% over the past 10 years. So we've got people dropping out of the industry and no one coming into it. I could talk about this a long time. I'm going to keep it simple. You don't get paid enough to be an accountant. There is a social stigma. And when I say you don't get paid enough, you have to get a master's degree to get a CPA, and then you get paid less than an investment banker or a tech employee. So it's just got like a comparison problem. It used to be the days where it was like a super steady job that had a really good salary and a lot of respect, and we're like losing a lot of that. A lot of the people, half of accounting is being an auditor, which is essentially a narc, and the other half of accounting is being a tax CPA, which is just that industry is fucked because the big four don't know how to change and update because there's too many partners in these big firms that can't make decisions to get away from the tax busy season they have that burns people out and churns them. I won't go on and on about that
I got
anymore.
a hot take for you.
Go for it.
I got a hot take
Hit
for
me.
you. All right. So based on what you just said, right, there's really 2 arms of accounting. There's there's auditing and big corporations that are public that need teams of people. And then there's every small business and every individual who needs their taxes done. So I think you should split up the accounting industry into 2, which is personal and small businesses and then public corporations. And they're just completely separate. And I think that will help a little bit with the rebranding of accountants. So it's like we can have the respectful professionals who come in and fix these companies who probably get more equity. They're treated more like engineers rather than accountants in the back room. And then we have the tax professionals who help the individuals and small businesses who are more like financial advisors. So I think that's how we rise. That's how we bring up the perception of the industry. Also, remember the film Legally Blonde? Reese
Of course.
Witherspoon?
Yeah.
Right.
Snap.
So everyone, yeah. Bend and snap, of course.
Bend and snap. Yeah.
A little less bend, a little more snap.
You've fallen for it many times. I've used it many times. Works every time. So we need an HBO show about accountants, because when Legally Blonde came out, there's some statistic I saw a million years ago, I don't have it off the top of my head, where it's like when Legally Blonde came out, law school admissions went way up for women. So it's like, let's have a cool show about accountants. Like there's a bunch of movies, but like they're always portrayed through the stereotype. So we need like a cool reality show or like a White Lotus type thing where the focus is on accountants. That's my take.
That would be huge. That would be huge.
So how do we make accounting cool? We could have literally a whole podcast about how to make accounting cool. And we probably should, honestly, based on this article.
Speaking of cool things having big implications, it looks like emojis can be ruled as financial advice, according to a federal judge. Some people were posting emojis, the rocket ship emoji, the stock market up and to the right emoji, and the money bags emoji are now potentially financial advice, which carries a lot of legal liability associated with it. Just ask Kim Kardashian and all the other people and Matt Damon and all the other folks that were sued for crypto recommendations over the past 2-3 years. Ask Larry David, Mr. FTX, which I don't think he was being sued for. I think that was purely a commercial, but
No,
also
that was
very
this
funny.
didn't age well.
Yeah, just not really good for the brand, really. What do you think, AJ? Where's the tax bimbo or the finfluencer in you? What do you have to say about?
I think this is fine. I read this as like a judge trying to do something to protect consumers from scams, right? And if you see a tweet and you're an uneducated consumer that says, buy these NFTs, and you see an emoji, which is what you can connect with because you're not educated in the personal finance space, you're going, oh, this is cool. Let me click on this. So, I mean, is this going to be effective? No. The community, this is in the article, it's like the crypto community is just going to find other emojis to indicate success. So the fact that this is very specifically about these 3 emojis is kind of like headline grabby, but I think the suit itself is meant to be like, look, the SEC does shit like this all the time to be like, they take certain cases to make examples out of things. So like, is this case going to have massive implications for, SEC regulation of financial advice on TikTok? No. Does it get attention for these communities to say like, hey, maybe individuals should do a little bit more due diligence rather than clicking on something and signing up because they saw a rocket ship emoji?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very hard to tell who gets paid to provide advice versus people that are shoving products down your throat, and we need some differentiation around that. I think that in the same way that the AICPA or the American Institute of CPAs is fucking up the pipeline for CPAs by making it too hard to become a CPA, I think the CFP board is making it too easy to be a CFP, because you can be a CFP and sell stuff like this and not just get paid for advice and like be pushing insurance and be pushing crypto and stuff. Whereas if there was a badge that said, oh, I only get paid by you. So if I make a recommendation or if I talk about it on TikTok or if I talk about it on Instagram, you can rest assured that I am somebody that only gets paid by you, the consumer, and I have no ulterior motive. And we can get some clearer advice as opposed to this TikTok bullshit that could potentially, sell a bunch of snake oil.
It's very harmful.
It is harmful. Yes.
Yeah, it's the fiduciary standard, right? It's working in people's best. It's your interest versus the people that you're trying to serve, right? Like, yes, we're giving advice. Yes, we're charging for that advice. But like, we do not get paid through third parties. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, of course I'm going to shill your product because you paid me $20,000 to talk about it. Like, I will happily recommend. You said something earlier. That was like we drop product recommendations all the time on this podcast. Like, we don't have sponsors. We might have some sponsors in the future, but like, it's because we use the shit, right? Like, we use Figma. We use
we just raved about One Medical. We haven't even used it yet.
One Medical. Thank you.
And we're gonna rave about Delta later. We're not getting paid by any of these people.
I mean, if Delta doesn't sponsor me by the end of 2024, I'm gonna throw a fit.
I know.
Speaking of getting sponsored and being paid to talk about products, we've got an article from the New York Times. That was a good one. That was a soft, little, easy softball segue there. They went viral and made money. Now they owe taxes. This is a wah life is hard article from the New York Times around tax season. It's about influencers on these various social media platforms who have made a bunch of money from these endorsement deals and advertising. And now they are surprised that they owe taxes on that money. And I feel for them, right? I mean, what business owner in their first year of being a business owner hasn't fucked up their taxes, right? It's a surprise. You're making a transition from someone else doing it for you, aka your employer withholding it from your paycheck, to it being your problem. So like, I get it. I get this sort of like first time thing, but this is like world's smallest violin, and I know that you have similar thoughts.
Oh yeah, I could dig in. I mean, as somebody that has dealt with first-time business owners many times, I just don't have a ton of sympathy. I mean, let me change the name of this piece here for you. All right, business owners surprised how easy it is to make money have to do basic business things. All right. This one influencer who has 7,000 followers says, "I'm walking through a minefield. I figured out what I'm supposed to do." They said, "I only have around 7,000 followers and I don't make a ton of income through Instagram. But if you make money, you have to report it." Literal quote. This is classic catastrophizing by people that have no resilience. If you're gonna fuck up and accidentally owe money, like figure out how taxes work as a business owner. It's great that you're figuring it out when you're 19 or 23 or 25, as opposed to your late 30s and you've just quit your job and you have kids to feed, and like, this is a great thing. You made a bunch of money. You're on TikTok as an influencer. There's plenty of CPAs out there that can help you. But yes, every tax season, the Time is in the Journal come up with great little. I've been in these tax. Remember when I was on national TV for being a silly tax person? I mean, this is the same situation.
You and I literally met on a podcast where I interviewed you about this situation because I was getting a lot of questions on my old podcast, Money Explained, about that. And you can listen to the first hour of Shane and I ever meeting. And I'm asking Shane, the cool tax accountant, like, what should you do as a freelancer? Like, what can you do to avoid this freaking problem? Wow, where did that come from? When have you ever heard me say freaking in 5 years of working together?
I don't know. Yeah, that was weird. I'm just not even listening to anything you say besides Shane's a cool tax accountant. Anyway, moving on to the next article. People that actually have problems in California.
real catastrophes. And seriously, shout out and our hearts go out to folks who are, experiencing their homes being destroyed or their stuff being destroyed, displaced. Like, that's very disruptive. So the IRS is cutting these folks a break due to the mudslides and weather patterns in California. Go to the IRS website. You might have a deadline extension if you are in one of these impacted counties. Unfortunately, my county, Riverside, was not on the list, but my mom, who's near Santa Barbara, she's actually on the list, and her roof was all fucked up. So she's getting a little bit of a nice tax extension, which is great. You have more time. You're busy fixing your life. You don't maybe necessarily have time to file your 1040. So
yeah,
that's good.
The LA counties, San Francisco, Mariposa, Marin, Santa Cruz, San Diego. Not every county, so you got to look it up, but a lot of the ones in California. Humboldt, even as north as Humboldt.
And once again, speaking of making accounting cool, like, let's not shit on the IRS. Like, they're pretty good about this stuff. They're like, hey, we notice people, like, they're listening to lawmakers and saying, like, yeah, we get it. We'll give you more time to file your taxes. No problem. Like, shout out to the IRS for doing this.
And part of like being able to deal with that is the $80 billion that we give them for administrative costs. So like, if they didn't have that money, like, they wouldn't be able to deal with various deadlines, et cetera. Anyway, we don't have a ton of time, and we've got Stripe. Do you want to dig in? You want to quick fire, double trigger RSUs? Yeah,
quick fire. Do me the quick fire of the RSUs.
You want me? You want me to do it?
All right, but I feel like we've talked about this ad nauseum. But basically, they're looking at investment banks to get them funding. These investment banks are taking out those. They're giving those opportunities to their wealthy clients to allow wealthy clients to actually invest in this potential. Getting in at Stripe, which allows employees liquidity to get money out for their RSUs, and allows Stripe to pay this big employment tax bill on these options as they vest. As these RSUs as they vest. We definitely don't have time to talk about this. I feel like we're rushing through this.
That's fine. I mean, I don't think there's much more to it. I think that they're struggling to get the prices they want from VCs, and Goldman Sachs is even bringing in retail investors or wealthy retail investors, because it's just not inspiring to say, hey, we need $4 billion to pay our employees, Social Security tax bill so that we can keep them around. And it seems like there's blood in the water, and these investors are saying, we're not even going to take your $65 billion valuation. We need a lower valuation of $40 billion, because when it comes to return on investment, most of the return is dependent upon the level of investment. So if they can get a low price, then they're going to get a good ROI. I don't blame them. And, it's bad management by Stripe to not have gone public in 2021. And now they got to deal with the consequences.
Exactly. All right. Last little 15 seconds. Delta Amex now gives a 15% permanent discount on award travel. So if you book your Delta Awards travel with miles, you pay 15% from that listed miles price. So that's going to be great for Delta Amex holders. We love to talk about credit card rewards because they're awesome and it's a game, and we like to win the credit card game.
All right, that's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. To vote on AJ's book, please just email her directly, aj@brooklynfi.com. Show notes are available at brooklynfi.com/episode 83. BKFI stands can leave us a review. If you want to be weird about it, please do, folks. Thank you.
Goodbye.